Warning: this show may cause you to play more. The consequences of this can include enjoying work, looking forward to coming home, dealing effectively with challenges, and being happy. Welcome to PlayDHD, the premier resource for expert information, conversation, and content focused on play and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, with psychologist and ADHD coach Dr. Kirsten Milliken and author Stacey Turis. Welcome to PlayDHD.
Hi, it's Dr. Kirsten Milliken and my lovely co-host, Miss Stacey Turis. Hi, Stacey.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to summertime.
Oh yeah, summertime in Texas. Nothing better.
We were just talking a moment ago, and you said you're going to see a psychic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tonight. I think I'm in like an existential depression.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've been in one. I literally just came to that conclusion today. I think I've been in one for like 6 months.
I would, yeah. Knowing what's been going on, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So finally, it's like I finally am like, I don't know, I just got all these signs and I was like, I need someone to just, give me clarity on things.
Well, do you remember last year when you and I were talking at Chad and you said that you had been told that 2013 was going to be a big shift year for you?
Yes.
So it makes sense that if you haven't figured out what that new thing is really,
so painful.
Other than PlayDHD, but it seems like there's more. It seems like there should be,
Yeah, there's something. I feel like I have to explode in some direction, and I don't know which direction to explode to.
Well, I absolutely relate to that.
Yeah, so. I know, exactly. So hopefully this guy seems pretty cool, and he came, by good word of mouth, so hopefully we'll see. I'll let you guys know what happens.
Oh, that'll be exciting, because I actually just got my natal chart done and went and met with the woman who did it, because she's actually a shaman and a psychic and an astrologer, and she's like one of the top in the country, because that's all my friend Donna ever puts me in touch with. So
that's awesome.
Quite phenomenal. Did you know, though, I have psychic powers? Not just intuition.
I believe it.
Psychic. And so we're working on clearing me out so that I can access my psychic abilities. And yesterday, in fact, she revealed to me that I have a mystic rectangle in my astrological chart, which is apparently very rare and suggests that I have one of the highest levels of psychic ability.
Whoa!
And she said people with that rectangle go one of two ways. Either they develop it, they go down that path and they develop it, or they feel very disorganized and overwhelmed all the time. So maybe you also have a mystic rectangle in your thing, and that's part of what's happening.
I definitely have a lot of superpowers when it comes to that stuff that I am not able to manage and don't know how to manage and or direct, and that is part of my existential crisis.
There you go.
So doggone mystical rectangles.
I'm telling you. So that's a little off the ADHD track, but it is kind of interesting.
And that's what you call a squirrel.
There you go, a big fat one. And feeding and getting ready for winter. So, and the ADA conference is coming up in July from the 18th to the 21st, I think. Now, Jennifer, are you also presenting at that?
I am, yes.
Excellent. So I'm going to see you there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of Jennifer, we've got Jennifer Koretsky here today, and we are going to be talking with her. She's the ADHD maverick, and we're going to be talking embracing the changing interests when you have ADHD. So welcome to the show, Jennifer. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this.
We know nothing about changing interests at all.
Never. That's not what we were talking about at all just a moment ago.
Yeah.
So not planned at all. Just happened to have to do with it. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about Jennifer. She's the author of the Amazon.com bestseller Odd One Out, which we have right here.
Aww.
Yeah, The Maverick's Guide to Adult ADD. She's also a senior certified ADHD coach and the director of the popular virtual ADHD conference and CEO of ADHDmanagement.com, your go-to guide for living with adult ADHD. And clearly, you might be able to tell that she specializes in coaching with high-achieving adults with ADHD, who include business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, creative types, rule breakers, yes, mavericks. She's been all across the media. Jennifer, you do a really good job of getting yourself out there and educating people about ADHD. So being on our show was kind of a big deal because I see you all over the place.
Well, thank you. Well, you know, it's really funny though. The Today Show, when I was on the Today Show, the producer found me on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, she found me, and she found me on Facebook of all places.
Wow. So there you go. You're doing a good job on Facebook too, then.
I guess so.
Oh my goodness. So tell us. I mean, you wrote this book a while ago, and clearly you live with adult ADD. I think. That's kind of out there. I'm not telling anybody anything that they don't know about you. So we're all in the same club together. And when we first talked and you said, oh my God, I want to talk about, you know, changing our minds, doing things differently all the time, jumping from one thing to another. What about that topic interested you? Why was that? I mean, it was like an immediate response when I asked you what you wanted to talk about.
Well, you know, I sort of have a reputation at home here of just having these changing interests where a hobby never sticks for me. So my partner has given me a rule, which is that I can't spend too much on any hobby. If it's, if it's like over...
What is too much? Wait a minute, that's not very well defined.
I don't, I think it's like if it's over like $20 or $50, like I have to check with her because, you know, it's like I was into gardening for a while, you know. If you saw my yard, you know, not landscaping, gardening was separate.
Right.
You know, if you see my yard, you would never know that I was into landscaping.
How many days did it last for?
A season. These things last for about a season with me. You know, when we were living in the city, there was one winter was particularly bad, and so we were stuck in the apartment a lot, and I started beading, you know, making necklaces and things, and asked for all these like really nice expensive beads for my birthday, and you know, and people were telling me like, oh, you should sell those necklaces, I can't believe you made that. And you know, the season was over and then my interest was over. And, you know, my partner was like, I bought you those nice beads, why aren't you just, you know, using them, making those necklaces? I'm like, I don't know, I just don't care anymore, you know.
So wait a second, my question is though, so you have gotten all of these things to do whatever hobby or interest it is at the time. When you lose interest, what do you do with all of that stuff?
Well, let's see. If it's landscaping or gardening, it just kind of rots in the yard. What do I do with the beads? Are in a box somewhere, just in case, because I think my partner didn't want to throw it out just in case.
So if she was not attached to keeping it, what would you have done about it?
I probably would have kept it just in case as well, you know?
I just want to make sure because
just
that's what I do.
Just in case.
I have my beads up there in a box just in case.
God, did we all go through a beading phase?
I have a jar of beads from my great-grandmother just in case.
Wow.
You know what though? I actually have like a little lunchbox with beads and stuff in it, and every so often when I feel like if my husband's watching TV, I'll grab that box and like make a necklace or something. So I just don't force myself to do it. I just do it when I fancy, and it's only there's a small window of time, you know, like 3 seconds. I better grab that box or
right. Otherwise, you're going to pick up your phone and get caught up in that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I love the changing interests. I just feel like we're so much more well-rounded.
Yeah, but you know what happens? I mean, I talk to clients all the time, and I used to be this way too, that are beating themselves up. Like, you know, I started doing this thing, and I was doing really well at it, and then I just dropped it, and what's wrong with me? And you know, sometimes it takes people a little while to sort of get over that feeling that you're a bad person if you know, start something and then you lose interest in it.
Don't finish it. Yeah, you know? Exactly. Because you're supposed to finish what you start. That's the responsible thing to do.
Right. Or you're supposed to find something and stick with it.
Right.
Because it's not just interest, Jennifer. I mean, one of the big examples that I've probably given a million times is my clients and their to-do lists or their calendars, right?
Yeah.
and they use it for a little while, and then they're like, oh, and then I just kind of stopped using it, and I'm like, you know, I've got like 10 of them that I go between.
That's
Sometimes
me.
I just buy a new
totally
one.
like that.
Well, I'll tell you what though. I probably would just, so when a client comes to me and something like their time management tools they're not sticking with, that's something I will really work with them on, because there's a consequence involved in that, right? If you're not managing your time well, and I'm not saying like if a tool was working for a little while and it's no longer working, then you change it. You know, that's not what you have to stick to. Just having that time management practice. If you don't have it, there are consequences attached to it.
You have to have something, but it can take different forms.
Right, right. Meanwhile, like, okay, so if I don't ever beat a necklace again, is there a consequence attached to that?
That's
no.
True. Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know, so who cares? There's no consequence attached to that. It's not something I need to work at continuing. That's useless guilt.
Right.
And that stuff weighs us down. Unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So what do you do with clients then who are coming to you and saying, you know, my partner is giving me crap because, you know, I've got all these things and I never finish them, and, you know.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the money thing is important, because, you know, and look, it's so embarrassing to admit, but, you know, when I was a kid, everybody was starting in band, right? And it was like, okay, what instrument do you want to play, whatever. So I ended up playing the clarinet, and then for years, still, every now and then, my mother will go, I spent all that money on this clarinet, you never practiced. But I wanted to take guitar lessons a couple years ago. Yeah. So I bought a guitar, and I took lessons, and now my partner says the same thing my mom used to say, which was, we bought you that guitar, and you never practiced. When are you going to practice that thing? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm hearing the same thing I heard from my mother. But, you know, and I think that's the thing. We've got to watch it. If we know we have that tendency, then you got to find, you know, hobbies that maybe you don't have to invest that much money in. Because that's when your partner has a right to be annoyed. If you're throwing away money and, you know, never picking this stuff up, your partner really does have a right to be annoyed.
Do you ever find I gotta sneeze, hold on. Do you ever find your partner gets invested though? And oh God, I gotta sneeze. This is just bad. I'm willing it away. I'm trying to will it away.
Just sneeze.
I can't now. It won't. So
it's on the cusp.
In like doing something with you, and then when you're not interested anymore, they're like, "Hey, wait! Like, I want to keep doing this, but not without you."
My partner and I are total opposites. We never have the same interests ever. It's more like she looks at my stuff and is like, what the hell is that? What are you doing? You know? Never the same interest. She never wants to get involved with it, and I don't want her involved because it's my thing, you know, whatever it is.
Well, and there's one less guilt too when you decide to give it up. So.
That's even like my neighbor, because she'll be like, okay, let's go take tennis lessons, and then I'll go take tennis lessons, and then I'll only want to, you know, it's like, okay, after we got through our first 3 levels, then I'm like done with tennis, and she's like, but we were, you know, tennis, we played tennis. I'm like, no, let's move on to the next thing. So she gets more frustrated than my husband does, because then she gets on a painting kick or, you know, whatever, and I'm just like, I can hang in there for a little bit, but I got to switch stuff up.
Yeah, and I think as long as you sort of put that out there up front, like, listen, just so you know, no guarantees. Maybe I will love this and it will become a part of my life, but more than likely, I'll be really into this for a little while, and then you're going to have to find a new partner. So I'm just letting you know that up front.
Yes, because they can get so offended. And I think the thing with the partners, too, where you were talking about how, you know, they have a right because of when we're spending money, but also I think there's some perception on their part that when we do something that they think that we need to be like, this is how my husband thinks. If I do something and he thinks I do it well, he thinks I need to become successful at it.
Oh,
there's no, I just want to play with this, you know, and he's figured it out, because now I went through yoga teacher training with never any idea of teaching yoga, but I wanted to learn. You know what I'm saying?
How'd you do going through the Reiki master training?
Oh my gosh. So I've done my 2 levels. So yeah, it's like everything, right? I mean, it's just, I just love to dip in and dip out and dip in and whatever.
And when you do it, you really do it, right? I mean, if you're going for training.
Yes.
But you know, it's not like this stuff is lost. You have now two sets of knowledge about, you know, in-depth knowledge about two different things that you will use in your life somehow or another.
I want to talk
Forever.
about that subject in just a second, but we need to go to a sponsor spot. And it's for ADD Crusher with Alan Brown. Here we go.
Do you wish learning could feel more like, I don't know, playing? Well, ADD Crusher videos are guaranteed to help you create mental focus, get and stay motivated, manage time, and more. And these videos are a blast to watch and learn from. They're like veggies for your brain, but candy for your eyes and ears. They're like having your own personal ADHD coach who's brilliant but crazy. And right now, you can get 20% off ADD Crusher videos by using promo code PlayDHD20 at addcrusher.com.
We are back with Jennifer Koretsky, the author of Odd One Out, The Maverick's Guide to Adult ADD. I don't know why I looked down at it. I already know what the name of the book is, but I like the cover because the colors are great.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, when you picked up the book before, or we were talking about something, I wanted to mention about, you know, not finishing.
Yeah, you finished that.
And the guilt that comes along with that. You know, people all the time, I hear from people all the time about, I started 5 books, they're sitting on my dresser, I never finished them, what's wrong with me? And it's sort of like the interest thing, right? You know, when you start to lose interest in something, even if it's a book, like, people convince themselves that, and I used to do it too, that, like, you're an awful person if you don't finish a book.
Yeah.
You know, if the book is no longer holding your interest, like, we got to get rid of this guilt and this little voice in the back of our head that says you must finish it, you know?
It's just, I always tell myself that is fake. That is all pretend. I'm making that whole situation up.
Yes, it's this crazy guilt we place on ourselves, and that's why
all these rules we think we need to go by.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's why in the beginning of my book I say, like, you know, sometimes we need permission, right? Like, I am giving you permission. Use this book however you want.
Yes.
You know, skim it if you want to. Skip around the chapters if you want to. Pick it up, put it down. Like, I don't care.
There's no rule about reading this book from front to back, right?
Or even, like, just reading the parts that you want to read. Knock yourself out. Like, who cares? I wrote the book, and I'm not offended if you do that, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's a whole different way of thinking. So one of the things I was thinking before we went to break was the conversation I had earlier this week, which was one of my exes was like an information junkie. And as a result, he came across as like this really hyper bright guy. But when it came to knowing what that information really meant, like how to apply it, he knew nothing. Like he liked the idea of owning a dog, but he didn't actually know how to take care of a dog. Like, he thought you could leave like a small puppy overnight and it would be fine, right? He had, you know, he talked about how he was going to open a like a specialized car shop. The man had never owned a specialized car. He never worked on a specialized car. And somehow he thought the people who owned specialized cars would let him touch their car, you know? But it was always like, I mean, even mowing the lawn. Like, he thought he knew how to mow a lawn. The man, like, I was in my house for an hour watching him mow, like, a lawn that took 15 minutes for me to do it, laughing my ass off. And then looking at it and realizing, like, how many little patches he had missed. Because he really had no, you know, not always the exact, right? But I have to think that, like, doing all of these different interests, we're getting experience with things that are not, it's not, and sometimes it might be reading a book that we're putting down, but most of the times it's doing something.
Yeah, and you know, the only thing I would say about your ex is that, you know, I mean,
don't talk about him.
Well, just like people in general like that. You know, a lot of people with ADHD get themselves into trouble when they sort of take this philosophy and use it towards business, right? I'm sure you guys have worked with clients that have had like 50 million businesses and they all failed because they got an impulse and they just went with it and they didn't do the research and they didn't do the you know, background work and all of that. And you know, that's dangerous. But what we're talking about here is play. Right? I mean, that's what you guys specialize in. Yeah. We're talking about play. We're not talking about investing your life savings in a business that you know nothing about. We're not talking about getting on a lawnmower when you don't know how to use it, and you could end up chopping your toes off, right? Which I hear.
If that had happened, it would just have added to the day.
But it's amazing to me how many people you hear about who, this total tangent, who just like chop their toes off
Squirrel.
mowing the lawn, But I mean, things like that can be dangerous. I mean, it's a piece of heavy machinery with rotating blades, and if you don't know how to use it, don't friggin' use it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, we keep going back to, when it comes to these interests that we're picking up and putting down at some point, a big part of the guilt is money. Mm-hmm. And then another part of it is really the beliefs that we have to finish things. Whatever we start, we have to finish, that we should become an expert on things if we're going to do them. What else do you think, makes people feel bad or hesitant to keep going with whatever their gut is telling them they're interested in at the moment?
I just think that as people with ADHD, I think every person with ADHD has been told by someone in their life, probably multiple people in their life, that they're too hard on themselves. Right? I mean, we've all heard that, right? You are so hard on yourself. Why are you so hard on yourself? And we hold ourselves to these ridiculously high standards that we don't hold other people to, So if you are, let's say, let's just take the gardening thing, right? So if you buy a bunch of plants and you go to plant them, and then if you're like me, they start to die, you don't know what the hell happened, you did this, you did that, you were
just
really
let it go.
And then you start feeling like, I don't even want to deal with this anymore, but what's wrong with me? If a friend were to come to you and say the exact same thing, you would never, I don't think there's anybody listening right now that would be like, what? Well, you need to fix that. What's wrong with you?
Right.
We never say that to a friend, but we say it to ourselves.
Yes.
And we'll brood over it, I'm sorry, but stupid things, and we make ourselves feel really bad for these stupid things. But we do that in general as people with ADHD. We're very hard on ourselves, and, it's a whole other discussion as to, why we get like this and the differences in our lives and the way that we grew up and the messages we might have heard, but a lot of us have that internal programming that we just have to work to get rid of, that says, whatever you do, you suck.
It's not good enough. It is not good enough.
Right.
You're capable of so much more, Stacey.
Oh, man, I've never heard that before.
If you just applied yourself a little more.
If you just applied yourself. Oh, my God. That was the worst. I heard that even through college.
Really?
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
I knew it was true. Huh?
I'm sure I heard it last week.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? And I'm a mom now, and I can't imagine saying that ever to my kids, And I have a whole totally different perspective now, because in the high school I would get 85s, and that was fine. I didn't put a lot of work into it, and it was friggin' fine,
Yeah.
But I would hear well, imagine what you would get if you just applied yourself. Why? Who cares? An 85 or a 95, And I really feel that way. Maybe my mind will change. My mind has changed on parenting issues a lot, but I can't imagine sitting there and telling my daughter no, it's really important that you get 95s, and you can't go out and have fun.
You can't get into a good college if you don't work hard in high school.
Yeah, you know what? When I was working in corporate, I was, you would be sitting right next to somebody who went to community college, somebody who went to state school, somebody who went to an Ivy League school, and we all have the same job.
I tell everybody, at the end of the day, nobody really cares to look at your diploma, and certainly nobody's going to care what your grades were.
Right.
So, your GPA is not going to be tattooed across your forehead when you graduate.
Thankfully, I never cared about any of that.
So lucky.
But I think that makes life a whole lot easier. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying fail out of things.
Right.
I'm not saying that if a kid's completely blowing off their responsibilities, it doesn't have to be addressed. I'm just saying we've got to teach our kids good enough is okay.
Right.
You know?
And
Things
having
don't have to be
fun. Holy
perfect.
cow. If you're not enjoying it, you're either not learning the right way or the right thing.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of just have to figure out intuitively, you have to just feel things out. When you start to live your life this way and your perception changes and you start to live for what makes you, you know, glow and grow, and intuitively you start to just follow those things. And then, you know, I just noticed that I don't care about what other people think anymore, because I was okay with me once I was okay with me, I just didn't care anymore. And it seemed like once I didn't care, then they were okay with me.
Well, I think a lot of times we invent it. You know,
Yeah.
we're like so anxious about things that we project all this. We were talking about swearing earlier. I'm trying not to
we
swear.
swear.
Oh,
but
go
we swear.
right ahead. I already did.
You know, we project all this shit onto other people that is our own issue. And we think that we're being judged by someone who couldn't care less.
You probably never noticed one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's really funny. It's like if you ever had a friend that like really, really struggled with their weight, or maybe it was you that really, really struggled with your weight, right? I mean, I've struggled with it. You know, sometimes you have a friend that like you go into a party or something with them and they're like, oh, everybody's going to be looking at me as the fat girl or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute. Do you do that when you go into a party?
I tell everybody,
No.
boy, you must think you're awfully special that everybody's going to pay attention to you.
Right. It's true. It's true. But then, you know, if you turn it around and you say, well, wait a minute, do you judge people the same way that you're afraid other people judge you?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Well, then where is this fear coming
Right.
from?
Right.
You know? Because most people are like you. They're there at the party to have a good time. They are not at the party to judge other people, you know?
I think you really have to work on stepping outside of yourself and looking at situations enough, and then it starts to become natural. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to work on it at first, literally taking yourself out of every situation you find yourself in, your perceived situation. Yeah. And then eventually you just kind of look at things that way.
Yes.
You know what dawned on me as you guys were tagging is that when we go into an interest, you know, whether it was landscaping or beading or something, we go into it because of our passion, because of our interest. And when we decide that we don't want to do it anymore, all of a sudden everybody else's opinion makes a difference.
Right.
Right? It didn't make a difference. It probably didn't make a difference when you started beading if your partner thought that was, you know, something that you'd be fabulous at or not. You were interested in it. But if you want to put it down, it's like, oh, God, they're going to think I'm, you know, giving up again or whatever.
Yeah,
So.
I have to tell you, I am very lucky to have a wonderful partner who I'm married to who is the exact opposite of me. And she works in the business with me. Yeah. But, you know, she's really, really good. And, you know, she knows now, like, this is what I do. And she may say, you know, really, you're really going to put that down because you were so good at it, and you know, you could even sell those things if you wanted to, but then it's over, you know.
And that's more encouraging than criticism.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, and there are definitely times when she's like I'll tell you what my newest obsession is. Do you guys know what kombucha is?
Yeah, I drink it.
Okay, not everybody does. So if you want to look it up, it's Kombucha. Well, I was on a kombucha kick like 10 years ago, long before it was cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's another thing I.
Before they were selling it in a bottle for $5 a shot.
Yes, that's another thing I pride myself on, man. I am ahead of these trends. But anyway, so I started brewing the kombucha, you know, at home. So like everybody comes over and they're like, because it's kind of gross looking, like when you brew it. It's
right.
There's like a yeast and bacteria colony that ferments this sweet tea, for anybody that doesn't know, and then you get something that's got, you know, probiotics, and I like it. I like the taste of it. But you know, people will come over and they'll be like, "What the hell is that?" You know, and it's like, you know, and she's just like, "Oh, that's just Jen's new obsession." You know. A couple months you'll see these things here, and then, you know, she'll be off of it again.
Isn't it great though that she can just like be like, oh, that's just who you are, you know?
It's fantastic.
It's not a deal. It's not a deal. It's just who you are and how you roll.
Right.
She
right.
lets you play.
And let me be clear, you know, there was a time early on, she's great, but there was also a time early on where I had to say, like, look, honey, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that in the training period.
Oh yeah.
There
The
was
breaking in. It's the breaking in period.
Yeah, there's a long, oh my gosh, my poor husband. We've been married for 11 years. So, fine. I mean, you know, he really caught on, I'd say, I don't know, 2 or 3 years into it.
Yeah, well, I've been with my partner for 11 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, you know, it does take a little while. And, you know, just like in any relationship, whether there's ADHD or not, like you have to teach the other person about yourself, you know,
Right.
and you have to advocate for yourself. And sometimes you have to say, look, it's really okay. This is what I do. I'm going to jump from thing to thing. It's really okay. If you don't believe me, go watch this video that I watched the other day online.
Yeah.
And
you know?
please, for some reason, they get so offended. Please don't get offended. It's not about you. I'm not quitting my hobby to offend you.
Right.
But also telling yourself that too.
Right.
This is just who I am.
Right.
My brain just isn't engaging anymore with this. I've done what I needed to do with it. I've had fun with it. And when it's not fun anymore, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, you know, the brain piece is important because people with ADHD need stimulation. We need it. Our brains need that stimulation.
Let's talk about that in a minute. I actually want to go to a break for a second. And Jennifer, what I'd like to go to a break about is your book, which is Odd One Out, The Maverick's Guide to Adult ADHD. And where can our viewers get this book?
Easiest place to get it is Amazon. And I've heard of it being in a few little bookstores here and there, but, you know, rather than ordering it at your bookstore, I would just go right to Amazon. It's the easiest way to get it, and it's usually the cheapest on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle. It for a very brief time after I was on the Today Show, it actually shot up on the Amazon.com bestsellers list. So that was like my, you know, happiest moment in life, because that was just a dream come true.
That's
to be
amazing.
To be able to say you're a best-selling author, you know, that was just a dream come true.
Yes. And so, and if they want more information on you, what's your website?
It's ADHDmanagement.com.
All right, perfect. So that's our sponsor spot for you.
Hey, I have to say something before I forget. We're out of the sponsor spot, right?
Yes.
Okay, I even wrote it down, so that means it was really important.
Yes.
Most of the time I don't bother. Well, the thing I was going to say is that the other thing that we're not looking at with our jumping from hobby to hobby is that a lot of times when you go into an interest, there's something in there that piques your interest in another area, and then vice versa. And so it's almost like you start to fill in these puzzle pieces that maybe are all different interests, but they're all encompassed in this huge breadth of knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
So it's like web surfing, but not on the internet.
Exactly. And it's expanding our horizons. But so I think there's something to be said for maybe it's not so random, and maybe it's not so jumping from interest to interest, because maybe there's some component of what we're studying or observing or doing that pushes us into a new direction.
Well, you know what, Stacey, I would say that you're a perfect example of that with your yogurt. Yoga teacher training, right? Because you plan on being a teacher, but you had an interest in yoga and you wanted to learn everything about it, and you wanted to learn the right way to do things, and you wanted to learn the history behind it. And so you jumped into it, and you wanted more, you know? So that's why you did it. And that makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me, you know?
And that's shot off in all these different directions. For example, the Reiki and aromatherapy, and which shot off into natural, you know, having all it's just everything. They're all different, but they're all linked to really this holistic well-being bubble that I'm creating.
They all fit in perfectly with who you are.
Yeah, and it's almost like I'm filling in those puzzle pieces inside of me, and they all link up.
Yeah,
and so
you know, that makes sense what you're saying, because it's like I can get obsessed with things like I brew my kombucha now, but like when my daughter was starting solid food, I was obsessed with making baby food, you know.
Oh, yes.
And you know, and now we're expecting twins.
Oh my gosh.
Baby food.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I said to my partner the other day, I was like, you know, I'm really excited that I'm going to get to make baby food again. And she's like, you know, it's going to be like a year before they're eating baby food. So just hang on there for a little bit.
But that gives you a year to figure out like what the best stuff is to make and what the best new toy is that you need to make it with.
Well, that's new toy. That's it, right? Because I have a year to be like, honey, come on. We can spend this money because it's for the babies. It's not for me. It's for the babies.
That's
you know? And really, it's for both of us. You know, or all of us, all three of us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. But yeah, so who knows? One of these days, maybe you'll come out with this, you know, organic baby food kombucha recipe.
You want to hear something funny? Okay.
What?
So before I had kids, well, I have my daughter now and the two on the way, but before I had my daughter, my dogs were my babies. They were absolutely my babies, and I was home feeding them, and they would get some raw, I mean, you know, talk about research and obsession, right? So they would get raw food, but I'd also make them crock pots full of vegetables and things, you know. And people would say to me, years ago, before this was ever actually going on in New York City, people would say to me, you know, you should think about packaging that and selling it, and maybe you could have a delivery service in the city. And I would look at people and I'd be like, do you think I am that fucking organized that I could actually
if we were, we would all have
know?
a million successful businesses with all the ideas.
Seriously.
It's true.
I'm like, you don't understand. There are days when no matter what, I am not going to get up and cook this shit. And that's all there is to it, you know? But like, and then, you know, all of a sudden on the news, it's like, oh, a new pet food delivery service. Are these people crazy, or is this great? And then they're interviewing people talking about how wonderful it is, and they give their dogs.
They had a friend who was organized. That's all the difference was.
And my friends, I had multiple friends be like, see, I told you. And I'm like, look, I never said it was a bad idea. I couldn't do it.
Wasn't what I was going to do.
You don't want to cook meat in a crock pot all day or whatever. I mean, that's what it boils down to, because like I said, my head, everything should be a business, right? And I used to think that, and now I'm not like that anymore, because I've realized that once you add money to everything or to anything, the fun goes away, right?
Yes, because it adds pressure.
It adds the pressure, and that's what it's like. That's why I'm like, that's how I am about that. But what was I talking about?
But you just brought us back full circle, Stacey, which is once you add money to anything, it's pressure.
Oh, yeah.
So like if what you said, Jennifer, was if you've invested too much, right, then that's even more guilt. That's more pressure. Oh my God, I would like get disinterested even quicker. So
yeah. It doesn't. You can just have fun with it. We can just have fun.
You don't want to make, you know, crock pot vegetables all day. I don't want to bottle my dog aromatherapy sprays all day. I want to create it. I want to create the recipes. I want to create the line. I want to create the bottles. I want to create the labels. I want to do the advertising. But I don't want to bottle this shit up and mail it.
Right. And you know what else? I keep going back to this yoga training because I think it's such a great example, right? Like you want to go and you want to find everything out about it because you're really interested in it, but you don't want to teach a class every week or a couple of classes every week, you know? Yeah. And like I can just see people being like, why would you spend all that money if you're never going to be a teacher? But you know what? I think it's great. Like, take classes. If you've got an obsession, you're really interested in something, why not take a class?
And that's another thing. We don't have to get degrees in everything that we're interested in either. And I've always tried, since I've learned that, I've tried to beat it into my dad because he has this freaking you know, PhD because he thinks he burns himself out. And I'm like, Dad, just take like a class that you think is cool, you know? Right. So that's another way that we pressure ourselves, is that it's like all or nothing when it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, especially in the world now, I mean, where there's so many options, and, you know, Jennifer, as you were pointing out, you know, the guy next to you might have a degree from the community college and the next person has one from Harvard. But if they're both well qualified, intelligent, productive, at the end of the day, that's what's going to make or break them, you know, in their jobs. So not where they went to school or
and
what
how much ass kissing they'll do.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, like, I run a business and a household, like you guys know, right? Like, even hiring like a contractor to do something for you. Like, it's not about where they went to school. It's about, can you relate with me? Can you talk to me? Do you want to do a good job? I don't care about the rest of the stuff.
And are you going to do it quickly? Because if you move too slow, you are going to make me nuts. I'm in the middle of hiring a contractor, so I'm like,
tell me about it. I'm in the job was done a week and a half ago, and there's still little loose ends that this guy didn't tie up, and it's driving me
crazy. Yeah, so maybe you could take on that as your next interest, though. I always say my electrician hates me because when I moved into my house, we only had 2-prong outlets, and so I wanted to figure out how to wire like the 3-prong outlets into them. So I went and I was taking stuff apart and trying to figure out the wiring configurations. And it took him longer to undo what I had done when I screwed it up.
But see, if I was an electrician,
but I didn't electrocute anybody.
But if I was an electrician, I'd love you, because I'd be like, this crazy chick just herself.
He does love me, but it took him like a half an hour to undo and fix what I had done. And every other outlet took him 5 minutes.
But see, if I'm an electrician, I'm like, all right, you want to play with this stuff? Go right ahead. I can kill more money, and you know.
So funny. So funny.
Yeah.
All right, so Jennifer, we end all of our shows with a little game that we play with our guests. And that little game is called Truth or Dare.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. See, that's what everybody says.
That's why it's the best question ever. That's why we will never get rid of it.
Okay, I'm going to tell you guys right now, ever since I was young, I never ever answered dare, so I'm going with truth.
Oh, okay.
Never. I was never touching those dares.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What is the funniest thing about you that you have never, well, you really haven't told anybody like publicly?
I think. All right, I've got something. So we were talking earlier, right, about before we started taping about swearing and driving, and I was saying I've got a real mouth on me. I've said sometimes I swear. Oh, you guys will love this. I swear like a truck driver who fucked a sailor, and hopefully I haven't offended 50% of your audience right now.
Hopefully you have.
And sailors, I don't think.
But, you know, so I've got to be really careful at home now because I have a kid, and it's okay at home, but in the car, like, all bets are off, and it's like I have no filter, and I forget she's back there, you know.
How old is she?
She's 2.5.
That's awesome.
2.5, and she's never sworn, so I'm doing something right.
You're good.
I'm doing something right, but, you know, she's not there. I always say, like, I have a little bit of road rage, like, not the kind of road rage where I'm gonna, like, cause trouble or pull over or, you know, but, like, I will yell at people in the car.
Right.
And I have this tendency to make up swear words for people.
Yes.
Like, on the fly, you know? So things just come out of my mouth.
Like what? Like, think of a good one.
What would be like a...
Okay, like, so we were on a road trip. We went to Atlantic City. I just got back last night to have some fun, to play in Atlantic City before the new babies come. And, you know, so we're driving and it's crazy. And, like, it just came out of my partner was dying. Like, I was, like, yelling at somebody and I'm like, you Christmas fucker. I don't even know where Christmas came from, or, you know, like,
it was just the sounds that needed to come out of your mouth.
Yes, and, like, my partner's always going, you know, you need to calm this down. And I'm like, But you know what? I'm not fighting with anybody. I'm
Right.
just venting my frustration.
Right.
Done. And then I'm okay. I'm not angry anymore.
With
Austin
creative
totally has
word twists.
Yes.
Austin's learned to just ignore me. So I think yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was on the phone talking to him driving in Boston, which makes me crazy. And I'm going, what the Yeah. So
Yeah, it's I've got lots of them. They just come out of nowhere, and I don't know where they come from, but they
love
feel
that you make
good,
them
you
up.
know?
I love that you make them up. That's
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
it's not on purpose. It's me unfiltered, you know?
that's your little tick. There you go. I have ticks, but only when I'm driving and frustrated.
Yeah. So I apologize if I offended anyone. Hopefully not, but you know, like my
Santa
book
Claus,
says,
sailors,
I'm a rule breaker, so that's one of many rules that
That's
I
what
break.
happens.
I love that. Miss Jennifer Koretsky, you've got the book Odd One Out, The Maverick's Guide to Adult ADD, and you are quite fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on PlayDHD.
Oh, thank you, Kirsten and Stacey, for having me.
That was awesome. I also just want to mention really quick for our viewers that if you go to the PlayDHD site, I think we need to tell them about the show notes because they're so awesome.
Yeah.
Like if there's anything during the show that we've mentioned, like Jennifer's book, or if we refer to whatever, we normally will put the links and references to all of that stuff in our show notes on PlayDHD.com.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for sharing that. And we should start sharing that at the beginning of the show, too.
Yeah, we should. I just thought there's just such great info on it. So
there is.
Anyway.
You do a great job with that. Thanks, Stacey.
Oh, no. Well, it's not me, but.
All right. Okay. It's all you. It's all you, honey. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
For more information on PlayDHD, visit our website at playdhd.com. Or come play with us during recess at Facebook/PlayDHD and on Twitter at #PlayDHD. Oh, look, a squirrel!